You've heard the tales of epic battles, political intrigue, and power struggles. Caesar, Pompey, Cicero. We often imagine Rome's fall as a grand, dramatic spectacle, full of gladiatorial clashes and betrayals. But what if I told you the true story behind the fall of the Roman Republic isn't just a series of dramatic events played out on the Senate floor or the battlefield? It's a quieter, deeper tragedy, rooted in the very fabric of Roman society itself. It's not just about the bloodshed, it's about the slow, almost imperceptible decay of social bonds, of trust, and of shared civic purpose that ultimately doomed Rome's democratic experiment. Join us as we uncover the untold story of how the breakdown of ancient traditions, the erosion of the vital patron-client system, and the rise of a disenfranchised urban poor class led to the Republic's collapse. It's a story of how a society can unravel from within, piece by painful piece.
If you're returning to the Classic Masterworks channel, welcome back. If you are new, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you will be made aware of our latest content. Now, on with the story.
To truly understand the eventual collapse, we need to travel back, way back, to the early days of the Roman Republic, a time often characterized by a unique social structure and a surprisingly strong sense of community. Picture this, a society initially built on the backs of citizen farmers, where land ownership was widespread and considered a cornerstone of Roman identity. Political power and social standing were intrinsically linked to this agrarian lifestyle. Here, the patron-client relationship wasn't just a transaction, it was a fundamental system of mutual obligation that permeated every level of society. Patrons, typically wealthy elites, often patricians or prominent plebeians, would provide protection, legal assistance, and resources. In return, their clients, common citizens, often plebeians, offered loyalty, political support, and even military service. It was a symbiotic relationship, designed to ensure stability and cohesion. In this idealized vision of early Rome, a man's loyalty extended beyond his immediate family. It was deeply ingrained towards the Senate and the people of Rome, that famous acronym SPQR. This wasn't just a slogan, it represented a powerful collective identity. Personal connections truly mattered, and ideally, political decisions were made with the common good in mind, or at least with a keen awareness of how they'd impact these intricate social networks. The traditional Roman social structure, with its clear hierarchy of patricians and plebeians, was held together by these very bonds, providing a framework for stability. However, as we'll soon see, this strong social cohesion, this bedrock of the Republic, began to unravel under increasing pressures, setting the stage for a dramatic and painful transformation. By the 2nd century BC, the first, undeniable signs of trouble began to emerge. Rome's relentless military expansion, while bringing immense wealth and power, also sowed the seeds of its own destruction. Returning soldiers from the brutal Punic Wars, wars that had secured Rome's dominance, often found their small family farms ruined or, worse, seized by powerful, wealthy elites. These elites had amassed vast estates known as latifundia, which were often worked by thousands of slaves acquired through conquest. This created a massive, systemic problem. A swelling urban poor class, landless, disenfranchised, and increasingly alienated from the very state they had fought for. The traditional patron-client system, once the glue of Roman society, began to fail spectacularly. How could individual patrons manage or meaningfully support such an enormous, desperate populace? The sheer numbers made personal ties insufficient. The elite were no longer universally viewed as protectors or benefactors. Instead, many were seen as exploiters, directly responsible for the plight of the common citizen. This widening chasm between rich and poor, between the landed and the landless, became a gaping wound in the Republic's side. The decline of small landowners was further exacerbated by the cessation of colonization efforts, which had previously offered a safety valve by redistributing land to dispossessed citizens. Attempts at land reform, like those proposed by Gaius Laelius around 140 BC, were swiftly rejected by the Senate, deepening the social tensions and signaling a dangerous unwillingness to address the growing crisis. Enter the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, a pair of tribunes who, with remarkable foresight, sought to address these profound inequalities through radical land reforms. Their proposals aimed to redistribute public land to these dispossessed farmers, hoping to restore the yeoman farmer class and, with it, the Republic's social stability. But they faced fierce, unyielding opposition from the Senate, an institution that saw these changes as a direct threat to their wealth, power, and established order. The political violence that ensued wasn't just a simple disagreement, it marked a terrifying turning point. This was no longer just a struggle for land, but a conflict over the very soul of the Republic, fought with daggers and mobs instead of laws and debates. The tragic fates of the Gracchi brothers, both assassinated for their reforms, highlighted the growing desperation of the lower classes and the ruthless lengths to which the elite would go to maintain their status. The bloodshed didn't just end their lives, it shattered a crucial taboo. This was the beginning of a new, dangerous era, where political violence became an accepted, even expected, means to resolve disputes, setting a chilling precedent for the decades to come. The social unrest was palpable, with events like the Spartacus slave revolt further underscoring the deep discontent simmering beneath the surface of Roman society. As the political landscape shifted, becoming ever more volatile, a new force emerged that would fundamentally reshape Rome: the military. Gaius Marius, a brilliant general, introduced sweeping military reforms that would change Rome forever. He transformed the Roman army from a citizen militia into a professional fighting force, recruiting directly from the urban poor, men who were desperate for work, a steady wage, and the promise of land upon retirement. This was a stroke of genius, but it came with a colossal cost. This new army was no longer loyal primarily to the Republic, to SPQR, or to the abstract ideals of the state. Their loyalty was intensely personal, directed squarely at their generals, their new patrons, who promised them land, wealth, and security. This change marked a truly crucial turning point. Generals like Marius, and later Sulla, Pompey, and Caesar, began to wield unprecedented power, using their armies not just to conquer foreign lands but to enforce their will within Rome itself. They marched on Rome, seized control, and imposed their political agendas through military might. The very institutions that had once ensured the Republic's stability, the Senate, the assemblies, the rule of law, were now being subverted by the ambitions of powerful individuals. The reliance on military force to achieve political goals was a stark sign of the deepening crisis, as loyalty irrevocably shifted from the state to the man in command. The social contract was irrevocably broken. The military, once a tool of the Republic, became a weapon in the hands of its would-be masters. The economic realities also played a role here. With the end of major external wars, the flow of spoils diminished, exacerbating poverty and driving more men into the arms of ambitious generals. As the Republic's political structure faltered and groaned under the weight of civil wars, the urban poor faced increasingly dire and dehumanizing conditions. Imagine the cramped, multi-story apartment blocks known as insulae, often poorly constructed, prone to fires and collapse, and teeming with thousands struggling simply to survive. Life in these crowded, unsanitary conditions was a constant grind. For many, the grain dole, provided by the state, became not just a convenience but an absolute lifeline, a stark symbol of the Republic's failure to provide meaningful opportunities for its citizens. With every passing year, the disconnection between the political elite, locked in their power struggles, and the average citizen widened into a chasm. The traditional Roman virtues, once celebrated, seemed to erode under the combined pressures of wealth inequality, political corruption, and the influx of diverse cultures from across the empire. Some moralists lamented a perceived decline in discipline and traditional family values. Education and child-rearing, particularly in wealthy households, shifted from parental guidance to reliance on slaves or freedmen, further altering social dynamics. For many in Rome, the promise of stability, of order, from strong men like Caesar or Augustus became far more appealing than the chaotic, often corrupt, and increasingly violent liberty offered by the late Republic. The allure of an empire, with its promise of peace, security, and a strong hand at the helm, began to overshadow the lofty ideals of democracy that had once supposedly flourished. The people had lost faith, not just in their leaders, but in the system itself. And with that loss of faith, the very social fabric that held Rome together began to disintegrate, paving the way for a new form of governance. If you're enjoying this exploration of Rome's social collapse and finding new insights, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let's keep uncovering the stories that shaped our world. In hindsight, the collapse of the Roman Republic wasn't merely a sequence of dramatic political murders or decisive military coups. While those were certainly the bloody climaxes, the true tragedy was a gradual, insidious, and painful unraveling of its social fabric. The civil wars served as the devastating final act, but the real underlying story was one of profound social decay, a slow hollowing out from within. The Republic didn't just fall, it was systematically weakened, its foundations eroded, until it finally crumbled under its own internal pressures. The lessons from this ancient story resonate powerfully even today. A republic, or any democratic system for that matter, requires a healthy social contract, a shared sense of purpose, and a degree of mutual trust to truly thrive and endure. As we reflect on Rome's fate, a society that struggled with immense wealth inequality, the erosion of traditional values, and a growing disconnect between its leaders and its populace, we must ask ourselves, could our own republics, our own societies, suffer a similar fate? History, as they say, has a way of repeating itself, and the warning signs are often there if we choose to look, to truly understand the deeper currents at play. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history, exploring the often overlooked social dimensions of Rome's downfall. If you found this video insightful and thought-provoking, consider sharing it with friends and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think were the most significant factors in the quiet, internal fall of the Roman Republic? Let's discuss.